All right. Welcome to Simple Alternative Meal Prep. Now, I know you are pretty excited to learn how in the world to meal prep in a way that is not completely overwhelming. So I am glad you are here with an open mind because we are going to go over all of the good stuff. So today, what you're going to learn is how to release your expectations of meal prep, the reason why you personally want to meal prep, what the most helpful tools to expedite your meal prep are, how to effectively plan your meals without getting bored, how to recreate the meal and not the wheel, the best strategies to save time and reduce waste, and how to use technology to your advantage. And lastly, how you can take your health further than just meal prep. So if you haven't met me, my name is Christine Souza, and today what I'm going to share with you is just a little bit of my experience. So I've got over 20 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. The majority of the time I was working as a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and then also a manager of corporate fitness centers was one of the things I spent the most time doing and is really a passion of mine. Now, I've done quite a bit also with nutritional coaching and lifestyle coaching as well. But oddly enough, my background was actually as a dancer. So my background is in dance education and performance. And I naturally, over time, found this industry, which I absolutely love. All right, so not only do I have the professional experience, but some of you know my story and know that I have that personal experience as well. So I've personally gone through over 10 years of autoimmune. So I've had, Lyme's disease 2 times. I have celiac disease. I had exposure to mold, which was a problem. And of course, when I had my kids, I gained a ton of weight, over 86 pounds with my daughter and 74 with my son. So I've got that experience of gaining and losing weight. So all that put together, I have had my fair share of experimenting with meal prep and trying to find what is a way that's going to work for not only my lifestyle, but my clients' lifestyles. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I like to start by talking about what the meal prep definition is. So the actual definition is the process of planning and preparing meals, right? Now, your definition might be a little different, right? It might sound more like this: spending all day Sunday, my only rest day, slaving in the kitchen in a cooking marathon so that I don't have to the rest of the week when I am tired and dragging. So that might sound a little bit more like what comes to your mind when you think of meal prep, because that's often what's portrayed a lot, right? You got to spend the whole day in the kitchen. And then there's my definition of meal prep, which is simply preparing healthy snacks and meals ahead of time so that when myself or my family are desperate, we do not make unhealthy choices and turn to unhealthy habits. Now, sometimes you do just have to kind of break the mold of what your thought is or what your expectation is of meal preps, right? And sometimes you just have to find the way that works for you. So I'm going to share an alternative way of meal prep today that hopefully will save you time and save you money and save you overwhelm so that you can do it and you can be successful at it and you could set yourself up for success throughout the week, okay? Now, not to say that you might not find a better way tweaking what you learned tonight, okay? So you want to keep an open mind and take what's going to work for you and leave the rest, and maybe tweak it along the way and share with us the things that you have found that have worked for you as well as our community. So out with the old all day Sunday, in with the new. All right, so before we go on and talk about really the strategy behind this, let's talk about why should we even bother? right? Why should we bother meal prepping? Why do we want to bother meal prepping? And I know some of you have listened to my your want is your why talk, and so some of what we learned in that session might ring a bell when we're talking about this. So what is your why, right? When you identify the triple deep reason of why you want to meal prep, it gets easier. So what is the real reason that you want to meal prep? Okay, it might be something simple, it might be something a little deeper, right? So maybe you just want to meal prep because it's going to simplify your week and you have a super hectic schedule, right? Maybe you want to meal prep because you know when you're prepared, you make better choices and you want your body to feel good, right? Maybe you want to be confident and eating well helps you feel your best, right? Maybe you want your husband to find you sexy, right? Maybe that's why you want your body to feel your best and look your best, right? Because you want to fuel it. You want to fuel it for those particular goals. Maybe you want a new job and confidence goes with that. Maybe you want to be that mom who has the energy to play with your kids, right? So if any of you are moms out there, you know there are some days that you might just feel totally gassed, right? And if you really look back on your day, a lot of times you'll realize, you know what? I'm so tired because I didn't even have lunch. You know what? I'm so tired because I didn't drink any water. That's one I'm guilty of. The water one, I got to really focus on that, right? But most often when I talk to women, they really want to be healthy and they want to feel good and they want the confidence and they want all that. But more often than not, along with that, you also want to play by your own rules, right? So mention something in the chat if that is you. And feel free to put in the chat, what is your specific reason? Why is it that you really want to tackle this meal prep thing? So now that we covered that and you kind of have that ruminating in the back of your mind on like, why do you really want to go through all this trouble? Why do you want to go through all the work, all the pre-planning, all that kind of stuff? Now we're going to talk about the strategy, all right? And before we talk about the strategy, we're going to talk about the kitchen tools that make this strategy really work in a time-saving way, because this can be, oops, I'm sorry. This can be, you know, something that takes longer. So you can take this strategy and you can really drag it out and make it take a long time. But I'm going to share with you the tools that will help you condense the amount of time that you spend in this meal prep strategy. Okay. And so these are really some of my favorites. So, I mean, I didn't put everything on here because, you know, you're probably going to need spoons and knives and things like that, right? A lot of that stuff, you know, you most likely have that in your kitchen. But I'm going to share the main things that help me meal prep fast, okay? And without feeling that stress, okay? So it is multitasking, but it's multitasking in a way that really works for you, okay? So a couple of things I use very often, almost with every meal prep session I have, is a toaster oven, but not just any toaster oven, okay? Not just one of those little toaster ovens that you put the toast in and then it pops up, or even the mini actual ovens that you can fit like 2 slices of toast in there. I'm talking about, it's a countertop toaster oven that also can act as a broiler or a convection oven, right? So this one shown here, it's a pretty good size. You can fit a whole pizza in there, right? You could fit a whole other, you know, food item to prep inside there. So it's actually acting as another way to cook, okay? It's not just gonna toast you 2 pieces of toast and that's it, all right? So you can get more done at the same time. All right, now this here is a Dutch oven. Now, if you have it in the budget, I highly recommend a Dutch oven that is even bigger than the one you see here in this picture. So the bigger the better. I have one that actually it's chef design, and I can share this with you all after. But it's actually takes up 2 burners. It's big, and you can get a lot done in that. But you can get a lot done even in the smaller ones as well. Okay. Next is a NutriBullet or a blender. It will work fine. I personally like the bullets, but you know, any blender will work fine as well. A lot of people like to use food processors. I almost never use a food processor in my meal prep. Okay, I just don't typically find a need for it, but there might be some recipes that you like that it might come in handy for you. Okay, sheet pan, a nice big sheet pan or 2, and then a nice big stock pot. Okay, for the stove top. And the other thing actually that did I add it here? I can't believe I didn't put this one on here, but either a slow cooker or an Instapot. Okay, that's another thing that is pretty important if you are trying to do this meal prep in a short amount of time, because you know what, you can use all this stuff at the same time. It's really going to condense the time for this. So you're going to watch. You're going to see. Okay, so of course you're going to have to go get some food before we actually do this, right? And so I've kept this very basic because you know, to keep your food clean, you're going to keep it basic, right? But it's the way that you're going to combine your ingredients that's going to make your food delicious, right? And then it's the strategy of how we're going to prepare everything, the fashion that you're going to prepare everything that's going to save you the time. All right. So grains, whole grains. Okay. You can do also potatoes, sweet potatoes, fruits, vegetables, fresh vegetables, protein. So lean meats, fish. Okay. If you are a vegan, you've got your tempeh, you've got your go-to staples for your vegan meat substitutes, if you even use substitutes, because you don't always need to, right? Herbs, condiments, supplements, and I want to add to that oils. All right, different oils are going to bring a whole new life to different dishes. Okay, you're going to see how you can take some similar items and make it taste so different. Okay, with that same prep, just by adding a different oil to it. All right, so with that said, you can get all of these things either fresh, and this is where you're going to have to make some personal decisions. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but you're going to be able to choose fresh, pre-cooked, frozen, or prepared, right? And the difference between pre-cooked and prepared is pre-cooked would be like, say, a rice that's already cooked, but is not prepared in the sense of a cuisine or a flavor profile. Okay. So those are all things that are just another level of how we can prep. Okay. And we're going to elaborate on that a little bit more. All right. Now, we're going to start, though, with deciding in your week, okay? Because if you do not decide when in your week you're going to make this happen, it's not going to happen, right? And if it does happen, it's probably going to be sloppy and not as efficient as you would like it to be. And then you might not have as good of an experience. And you might say, you know what, I'm not doing that because last week when I tried it, it just, you know, it wasn't quick, like Christine said. Right? And granted, with any skill, you're going to get better at it over time. So the first time might take a little longer, but it will get faster and faster. However, if you plan accordingly by time blocking, okay, and time blocking simply means that you find the specific block of time within your week that you're actually going to execute your plan, right? So, for example, you're going to want to spend a little bit of time, maybe 20 minutes or so, and hopefully I can cut that down for you because I'm going to have some plans for you. But 20 minutes, say, planning and deciding what your week is going to look like in terms of meals, what you're going to have for lunches, what you're going to have for for your dinners, what kind of snacks you want this week, right? You might want to keep it the same every week for efficiency. You might not. Okay. So say you schedule about like 20 minutes to plan that, say on maybe a Friday, right? Friday is good, yes. And then you're going to want to plan depending if you are a person who is going to go and do your own shopping. This can vary depending on what kind of shopper you are. If you like to stand there and read all the labels, I mean, if I don't have my kids, I could be in the grocery store for like 2 hours if I just am leisurely and just enjoying myself, because I've got problems like that. But if I need to be efficient, right, it could take me 60 minutes or it could take me 30 minutes, depending on, what your process is, right? Maybe you're just copying your shopping cart online from last week and then ordering like that, right? That can take significantly less time, and we'll talk about that more too. But you want to say, this is just an estimate. Say block out like 60 minutes for the day that your shopping is actually going to happen, right? Shopping, ordering, whatever you decide to do. And then you're going to block off another period of time for your actual cooking. Now, and you're preparing. And you're going to see where you are going to have one period that is going to be, say, like maybe an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour and 15 minutes. And then you'll have very little to do throughout the week to build upon that. Okay, but you will need to block off some time for cooking. But once you have your plan done, then you're going to know how much time you're going to need for the cooking part, right? So you'll know how much time you want to set aside for cooking. I'd say like maybe, 60 minutes or something like that, 75 minutes. Okay. Now with what I'm going to show you, I will say, once you see it, you're going to understand that, okay, this is really cool. And you might want to keep the same meal plan for 4 weeks, right? So say you have, 4 different meal plans to choose from, right? For 4 different weeks worth of meal plans to choose from. Now, you can, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to eat the same food week after week, then you can, do one meal plan one week and then a whole different one the next week. And you can do that. But even more efficient for time is if you take that same one and you repeat it for 4 weeks. It's going to be like that. It's going to be so much faster for you to get everything done. And even for your grocery list, because it's going to be the same exact stuff. You won't even really need to make any modifications. Okay. So, all right. Now, moving on from there. All right. Does anybody have any questions before I keep going? If you do, just feel free to pop them right in the chat, okay? And I will open them up. I promise I will get to them. All right, so the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna choose your lead theme, right? Based on your personal goals. And that's gonna be different for everyone. Now, for example, you might want to choose your theme based on, and like the meals that you choose based on your macros, right? So, if you're following like a keto diet or, something where the ratios or the percentage of the protein that you're having versus the carbohydrates versus the fat is very specific, right? There are certain ways of eating out there that are more specific than others, right? So that's one way you might want to decide to use as inspiration, I will say, is a good word to use like while you're planning this, right? Maybe you use a flavor profile. Maybe you say you want to have like Indian food this week, or maybe you say you want to have I don't know, and a little Asian flair or Mexican flair. Okay, you can use your flavor profile, or maybe it's a season, right? So maybe it's fall or winter, and you feel like, oh yeah, I want that like apples and squash and thyme and rosemary, and that's kind of your flavor profile for some of the meals. Okay. Family preferences, of course. If you have a large family, or if you have anyone in your family with food preferences or food allergies, then of course you're going to want to take that into consideration. Kids always can be a wild card as well, right? So you'll want to take that all into consideration, and even maybe consult them and say, hey, what are the foods that I make that you love? Because then it's going to be a win-win for everyone, right? So that is something you can use for inspiration. I already mentioned food allergies. So for me specifically, I can't have shellfish and I can't have gluten, right? And so I have to make sure that whatever I'm going to make is going to be edible for me, right? Not that I can never make something special for the other people in my family who can have gluten and wheat, but that is another thing to take into consideration. And then also, depending how you do your shopping. So if you're someone who likes to get their food at the farmer's market, or you're part of a food share, right, where maybe you get a box of what you get and that's what you get. So that might throw a little wrench in your planning, but you probably will have a good idea or a fair idea of what is coming for the season. But that could be a part of what plays into your decision making when you're planning your meals. Okay. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to shop. So you're either going to order online, which a lot of people are doing during this season, or you can still go and shop in person, either at the outdoor markets or at the indoor markets, right? Or then there's also meal services, which we'll talk about later as well, which will things like Blue Apron, right? Or Hungry Root, or some of those services that will actually deliver the what you need for the meal somewhat prepped, and then you continue to throw it together, right? So that's also something that you can think of, right, while you're planning this. Lots of options and ways to optimize based on your lifestyle and how much time you have or want to put into it, because everyone has a different personality style and everyone has a different allotment of time. Everyone has a different skill set. Everybody has a different dynamic going on in their household. Okay, so you want to make it work for you. That's one of the most important things, because if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to help you. Okay, it's not going to get you to your goal there. All right, now it's time here. Okay, so now we're going to get into the nitty gritty, okay, and talk about the preparation and explain how to go about doing this. Now, in the past, before COVID, when I would do something like this in my home, I'd actually have all the food and prepare it for you and, show you specifically how I do everything. And I was thinking in this situation, that might be fun to do at a later date, right? When everyone is all prepped and has everything they need. And if I'm going to spend the time doing that, we might as well all do it together, right? So that's something that we can maybe plan for the future. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain and share the strategy behind it so that you really understand it. Instead of just watching someone do it, I'm going to explain the actual strategy, okay? Of course, first you got to prepare your food in terms of washing it, right? And you want to wash it with some vinegar and water, okay? Just to kind of get all the grime off of your produce and things like that. There are certain things that could use some prep, right? Depending how in depth you want to go. You can soak your rice, you can soak your beans, you can do all of that sort of stuff. Again, depending on how much time you have. But some of the benefits of that is helping with your digestion when you're eating these foods. All right. So depending on what your preference is, we can feel free to ask me any questions about that after. Okay. But I'm not going to go too much into that because it's pretty straightforward. You probably know how to do that. Okay. You wash it, you dry it, you're good. Okay. You can either do that all at once at the beginning when you get your groceries, or, just as you're preparing things. Okay. All right. Now, so I mentioned that you're going to have one period of what I'm going to call like the heavy prep session. All right. And so it's probably going to be about an hour, a little more than an hour. Okay. Depending how efficient you are. All right. Of actual labor. And when I say labor, I mean you standing in the kitchen doing it. Right. And then there's going to be a couple of hours where things are cooking, but you're doing something else. Maybe you're doing laundry, maybe you're spending time with your family, right? Maybe you're watching something on Netflix, maybe you're getting your workout in, maybe you're I don't know, coloring your hair. Right? You could be doing a whole host of other things. Okay. And so that is really the framework for this type of meal prep, and I'm going to show you exactly how that's done. So we're going to talk about this heavy prep section right now. Okay. And you're going to see here where the different pieces of equipment are going to come in. Okay. What I've set up is an actual example of what a week's prep could look like for you. Okay. Now, and like a 5-day schedule, right? Because usually on the weekends you might go a little AWOL or do something a little bit special. Okay. So typically, like 5 days is a good amount of time to prep for. Okay. You can do more. Nobody says you can't cook more, do more. You can always do more, right? But we want to be a little bit more efficient here, right? Just we're talking about the 5 days. Most food can stay good for that amount of time. Once you start getting to like day 4.5 to 7, some things get a little questionable. Okay, so that's why I like to stick to this 5-day framework. Okay, so now imagine just for a moment you're in your beautiful clean kitchen and you're about to just wreck it. No, just kidding. You're in your beautiful clean kitchen and you've got what? You've got 4 burners. Okay, maybe you've got that toaster, maybe you've got that slow cooker, maybe you've got 2 oven racks, or some people even have a double oven. Right? I don't have that, but that would make this even more efficient if you do have that. Okay, a casserole dish, right, is going to be another option. Microwave, if you're into microwaves, you can use microwaves. Toaster. All right, so here we have, so just imagine this scenario. Okay, so in your Dutch oven, okay, that was the ceramic one that I was talking about. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be ceramic. Okay, I have one that's stainless. I think you can use any covered pot that can go on the stovetop, on a burner, and in the oven. Okay, so for this example, and some of these things can be switched around. Okay, but I'm just going to stick with this example so I don't confuse you. Okay, but the first thing I'll say is, for example, I'm going to choose in this scenario to cook my meat inside the Dutch oven, but that doesn't mean that depending on what you have at home that you can't cook the meat in a slow cooker. Okay, that makes sense, right? But I'm going to stick to what I have written here for the rest of it. But just know that you can work with what you have. There's more than one way to cook most things. All right. All right. So let's talk about the Dutch oven. I'm going to take a whole chicken or turkey. I did this with a turkey. I cooked whole turkey on my stovetop. It was amazing. I know it doesn't sound possible, but it was, and it was amazing. I can tell you more about that later. Okay, but you could take, say, a whole chicken. Okay, and if you don't eat meat, you can kind of substitute whatever your go-to meat would be. All right, and maybe you just don't do the meat at all. Okay, because you're going to see there's rice and quinoa and beans in here and all that complete protein stuff, as well. You can make a whole meal out of meals out of. Okay, in this one Dutch oven, you're going to throw, say, a whole chicken in there. Okay, this is just one example. You season it how you like, right? It's going to take you 2 minutes to get out that kosher salt, rub it all down with some garlic powder and whatever, okay? Whatever seasoning mix that you like, whatever flavor profile you like, right? If you want it to have like some cinnamon in there, you know, you can do that. If you want it to be on like the salty side and you want to do like turmeric, you can do that, okay? And then optionally in that same pot, you can throw some vegetables in there, right? Some potatoes and some cabbage or carrots, okay? You have the option to throw that in there, but just keep in mind that those vegetables are going to be coated in something very specially indulgent. So that's probably not going to be your cleanest vegetables that you'll have during the week, but you know what? It's something that you can do, okay? So you've got that. So you've got this chicken that's going to last you quite a few days, and you're going to see all the different meals that we're going to be able to make out of that. Prep time, roughly 5 minutes. Cook time, roughly 3 hours, depending on the poundage, okay? Now, let's move on to our next piece of equipment, which is plugged in on the counter, okay? A slow cooker. And now you could use a slow cooker or an Instapot, which can make things even faster for you, okay? Now, you can either throw in a second lunch item. Say you want to have a roast or something. You can throw a roast in there, but in this scenario specifically, right, if you wanted to have something else for lunches, just to have another thing, you could. But for this scenario, I would most likely put in beans, right? Dry beans with water seasoning. So I am being generous with saying it's going to take me 5 minutes to prep that. It's probably going to take you 2 minutes to prep that, to open the bag, dump it in, fill it with water, add some seasoning, done. So I'd say 5 minutes if your kid interrupts you. Okay, so that's your second thing going. So we're at 10 minutes, okay? We're 10 minutes in. Now we're going to stovetop burner number 1, okay? And in that area, I would get a nice saucepan and cook a versatile grain like a brown rice or a quinoa or something to that effect. I mean, there's other things that you can cook. There's millet, there's all sorts of things. So whichever grain that you like that works for you and your family, I would do on that stove burner number 1. Oh, let's see, how long is that going to take to prep? That's going to take about 5 minutes to prep, maybe. And it's probably going to take you longer, like at this point, to think like, okay, what am I going to do next? But if you have it right there, you're going to know. And then 15 minutes or so to cook. Okay. So we're at 5, 10, 15 minutes there so far prep time. Okay. Now, give or take a little bit, okay, depending how it's going. Now, stovetop burner number 2. Okay, say something like boiled eggs. Okay, you just fill the pan with water, you throw some eggs in there. Definitely generous at the 5 minute mark there with preparation for that. So that's like 10 minutes to cook. All right, and remember, that's cooking all at the same time that your chicken is getting done, okay, that your beans are cooking, that your grains are cooking, okay? So with the eggs, you know, maybe if you don't eat eggs, maybe you take that time to do something like a tofu kind of scramble, right? Where maybe you put that in your toaster, right, down below. Okay, not a tofu scramble, like a tofu bake, okay, something like that. So that's your extra protein, something that's good for a snack, something that might be good for, you know, say dipping during the week. All right, so we're there. Now we're moving on to rack 2. Any questions so far? Just throw them out there if you have any questions. All right, so now we're into the oven. Oven rack. Oh, I guess I got 2 oven rack twos. All right, so you got 1 oven rack, excuse me, with roasted vegetables that you're gonna roast. Now, I will say out of everything, it's the vegetables that take the longest to prep. If you're peeling them, washing them, peeling them, and cutting them yourself, okay? So I gave about 15 minutes of chopping, okay, there. Could take a little longer, could take less time, and it could take no time if you buy them already chopped, because you can get just about any level of pre-prepped food these days. It all depends on, you know, your personal preferences, how much money you want to spend, and what you like. Okay. So I'd give a good generous 15 minutes or so to cut those up. Okay. So what can you roast? You can roast Brussels sprouts, you can roast asparagus, you can roast broccoli, you can roast sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. So I usually will do the sweet potatoes on a separate rack, but you could certainly blend that all together with like maybe some cauliflower or whatever it is that you love. Okay. Now, it's something, you know, they take a little bit longer to cook, right? So 20 minutes, 30 minutes, which is good because instead of doing something else on like the stovetop burner, like your vegetables say that are a little bit more like you have to really keep an eye on them, that kind of stuff you want to avoid when you're kind of multitasking like this. You know, so I typically won't do like those kind of vegetables when I'm in like a meal prep session like this, because, you know, if I forget the eggs for an extra 5 minutes on the water, it's not going to make a difference, right? You know, quinoa, things like that, it's pretty forgiving. Okay. Not going to have to look at the chicken for a long time. Not going to have to look at those beans for a long time. Okay, so now we've got our roasted veggies. We got our sweet potatoes. Okay, so let me tell you how I do the sweet potatoes. I chop off the 2 little ends, and you know what? I didn't even used to do that until my mother said, "Oh, I like to chop off the edges," and I was cooking for her. So now I do that when I'm cooking for her. And then I just cut it literally in half, face down on the pan. That's it. And I actually have a little video I can share with you about that. It's so easy, and they are the most delicious sweet potatoes because they just caramelize when you cook them slow like that. Okay, so 375, right? Yeah, it sounds low, but for like 30 minutes or so. Okay, and so it's congruent because these roasted veggies and the sweet potatoes can bake at the same temperature in the oven, right? So one's on actually rack 1 and the other one is on rack 2. Okay, we're getting there. We're almost done with this section. So I hope you're getting this. I hope this is making sense for you. I think next time I'm going to draw a diagram for you, a little cartoon diagram. Okay, breakfast talk. Overnight oats, so easy. And now when I do this, ooh, we got a comment in here. Let's see here. Yes, this is making sense. Good. I am glad it is making sense. Oops. Glad it's making sense. All right. Yeah, so we're talking now about overnight oats. I do these in a covered casserole dish. Now, if you want to, with all of this stuff, you can put it in individual, like specifically with the overnight oats, as you're preparing them, you can put them in individual mason jars if you want to, or you can just put it in a big casserole dish, which is what I do, and then whoever wants them takes it, puts it in their bowl, washes their bowl or their, you know, whatever, their mason jar, and takes it with them when they're ready to go. Okay, and we'll talk about the storing and all that later. But the overnight oats, 5 minutes of prep. I'm going to pretend I'm doing it for you right now. 1 cup of oats, dump. Okay, half a cup of almond milk, pour, dump. Some cinnamon, there we go. And now I'm going to put a half a cup of applesauce. See, I'm pouring my applesauce, dump. I'm going to stir it up. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to put it in the fridge. Literally, that's how long it takes. So I think 5 minutes is super generous for that. Okay. And then you just leave it in there overnight. And to be honest, you don't even have to wait till the next day. If you can't wait till the next day, they're going to be good to eat, you know, fairly shortly after that, especially if you use, there's different kinds of oats that you can use. Now, steel cut oats, you probably have to wait till the next day, but there's the rolled oats. Those don't take as long. And then there's the ones that are almost a little bit more shredded, which are kind of more like instant, but these are plain. We're talking unsweetened, okay? Unsweetened oats. Okay, all right. And now the last thing is the toaster, okay? So in the toaster, I will throw, for this specific meal prep, a chicken sausage, okay? And if you're vegan, you can get a vegan hot dog or a vegan sausage, or I still love that vegan chorizo that they have at Trader Joe's. That's like a delicious one. Okay, you can throw that in there. Okay, 2-minute prep, because all you're doing is what? Opening the package, shake it out onto your foiled pan, put it in. Okay, and that could cook like 30 minutes, depending how well done you like them. Okay, so this is an example of like your heavy prep. Okay, and so I'm thinking maybe the first time you do this, maybe this is going to take you like an hour and a half. Okay, but I think after you do it more, it's going to take you less time for sure. But you can see how quickly that can be done and how forgiving these choices are. Okay, I'm not trying to burn down a house while I'm doing this meal prep. I don't want to burn down your house either. Okay, now, so here's what this looks like. So all this stuff is cooked. We're going to talk about, storing it in just a minute. But I want to show you how that's going to play out in my 5 days. Okay, so we got the 5 days here. So I probably made, say I'm made it, okay, waiting for my groceries to arrive, right? Maybe I'm going to have a shake. Maybe I'm going to have something, that's in my fridge already, okay? And then for a snack, I'm going to have some fruit and cheese. All right, and now I'm powered up. I'm still a little hungry. I might have my leftover lunch, right? So you see where I'm starting at like the end of my cycle, going into the beginning of the cycle. All right, so I'm doing my meal prep, and for dinner that night, I'm going to have the roasted chicken, okay? Once it's done, right? So say you start this at like 2 o'clock. By 5 o'clock, okay, you're gonna have a roasted chicken done. And now, I mean, you can literally, if you do a small chicken, that can be done in like an hour and a half, okay? But if you wanted to do something that was more like 10, 12 pounds, which would get you through most of the rest of the week, I think that that's a better choice. It's gonna be more like 3 hours. Okay, so you got your meal, which is roasted chicken and cabbage, and maybe you can have some quinoa with that, right? Because that's cooked there. So now you go to bed, you wake up the next day, and you're ready to have your breakfast. Oh, look at that, overnight oats. They are done and ready to go, okay? So you got your overnight oats for breakfast, okay? And then so you're gonna have a snack, right? So you're gonna have maybe a vegetable and some cottage cheese, or maybe you're gonna have some high protein tortilla chips with some cottage cheese, right? Or maybe it's going to be a piece of fruit with some cottage cheese. I don't know what you're going to feel like, but that's going to be something that's going to be pretty simple, pretty simple for you to just kind of grab and go. Okay, I personally don't prep vegetables in terms of like eating the raw vegetables, but that's because that's something that you can do simply. Like if you wanted to have if you like carrots, you can get those pre-done carrots, right? So, and it doesn't have to be those ones that are mechanically done, because they sell them that are already chopped up. But if you want, you can chop some stuff up yourself. All right, personally, I just usually go for something that is simple, like an apple. Probably just grab an apple, something that's grab and go, and then pair it with like the cottage cheese. Okay, maybe if I'm having an apple, maybe I'm gonna put some cinnamon on the cottage cheese, right? Versus if I was having something more like a vegetable. Okay, but celery, you don't really have to cut that. You can just break it off, wash it real good, crunch it. I think maybe I better cool it on the animations here, right? Okay. Okay, so now we're on to lunch. Okay, so you're gonna see throughout this week, we are not going to have the same meal every day for 5 days, okay, which is typical with meal prep programs. That's not what we're doing, but I am going to have it the next day for lunch, okay? Now, what I forgot to tell you was, and you can, yeah, what I forgot to tell you was that after I ate dinner the night before, while I was eating dinner, I had already, before I ate the dinner, taken the meat off the bones and then put the meat aside, and then took the carcass of the chicken and I put it in a pot of water, okay, to make some broth. And then once that's done, then at the end, okay, before you go to bed, like maybe while you're winding down, maybe you throw some extra vegetables in there, and then you have a chicken soup, okay, all done. All right, so because at lunchtime, I'm gonna have roasted chicken and cabbage, and then for dinner that night, I'm gonna have chicken soup. Maybe I'm gonna have it with a salad. I don't know. Maybe I might feel like throwing something simple together like that, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just gonna have the chicken soup. Okay, so now we're on to the next day. Okay, I'm gonna have overnight oats, I think, again for breakfast this day. Okay, some of this stuff can be all switched around, but I'm just giving you an example. And then for a snack, I'm gonna have a protein shake, right? Because that's simple, it's fast, it's delicious, makes me feel like I'm having ice cream, getting all of my nutrients in, right? A full profile, meal profile of vitamins and minerals. Okay, and then I'm gonna have that chicken soup for lunch with a salad. And for the salad, I love to get that musclin mix that is dry and delicate and lasts. So it doesn't really get, for example, like if you get the baby spinach, sometimes that will go bad really quickly. So I'll get that musclin mix and literally just throw that in. Now you can get fancy if you want, or you can just have just a nice delicate salad with lots of greens and some really good oil, right? Extra virgin olive oil, or avocado oil, or whatever you like there. Okay, with that chicken soup. All right, now we're moving on to dinner. Okay, so now I'm taking this chicken here, right, that I roasted the first day, and I'm going to put that with an egg, okay, over a sweet potato. And that's going to be my dinner. And what I'll do is I'll probably take some spinach, like I have talked to some of you about in the past, and throw some spinach underneath that. And that is so good. That is so good. So I have a vegetable, but if I want, I can grab some of those roasted vegetables that I had. So I already have plenty of vegetables to choose from. So you can mix and match, and you can take what you want. So that would be my dinner. So all I'm adding here is a little bit of barbecue sauce to change the flavor profile on my chicken, adding an egg with maybe an over easy yolk if you like that, which changes it as well, and putting that over a sweet potato with lots and lots of spinach. Now this barbecue chicken, so maybe if you're a vegan, maybe it's not barbecue chicken, maybe it's that like tempeh that you baked, and you can put a little bit of barbecue sauce on that, right? So, and then maybe you can add some tofu or something there. All right, so that is an idea, okay, for dinner. Now, moving on to the next day. So I'm going to have, for breakfast the next day, I'm going to have eggs, and I am going to add a little bit of that chicken, right? There's still some chicken there, because depending on the size, it will go a long way. But actually, no, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. So I'm having eggs, chicken sausage, and sweet potatoes. And maybe in that roasted vegetables, maybe in those roasted vegetables, when I was roasting them, maybe I did peppers and onions. And then that would be a really yummy, delicious breakfast, right? Sweet potatoes, chicken sausage, and eggs. I do that a lot. Super good. And you can, or maybe have cauliflower in there too. And that's like a pretty solid breakfast right there. Okay. So you don't always have to think like you have to have just like an eggs and toast or, or whatever. Yogurt. I see tons of just yogurt for breakfast when I look at when I go over people's meal plans. And yogurt's not bad unless you get the bad kind, of course, right? But you want to keep it, if you're going to have yogurt, of course, you want to keep it Greek and you want to keep it low in sugar. Okay. All right. So we got breakfast here. Now, so these are some of the solutions that I use that simplify my day, right? So I mentioned the protein shake. Another one is an isolene bar. It's a meal replacement bar. It's 250 calories, right? And it has a full, vitamin mineral profile. So it could be a meal replacement, but depending on what the rest of your day looks like, you can have that as a snack. You can have a snack that's 150 to 250 calories. It's no big deal, right? You can do that. Okay, so we've got this. So isolene bar simplifies my life, okay? Not to say that you can't have a grab and go. Maybe you get a banana, right? And maybe you put some peanut butter inside a little baggie and then cut the tip off like it's frosting and then squeeze it on the banana, okay? Maybe you have that for a snack, okay? Maybe you do have a low sugar yogurt, okay? Maybe you do have something else that is pre-prepared but that you didn't have to prepare, right? Maybe you do have like an RX bar or something like that. Okay, so next, moving on to lunch, chicken sandwich. Yeah, chicken sandwich. Who doesn't love a chicken sandwich with maybe some light honey mustard on there, right? Or maybe throw some cranberries in there. I mean, who knows what kind of sandwich you want to make, but I would make a nice fun chicken sandwich, okay, for lunch. And then for dinner, okay, so you're going to see these circles here, okay? These are the new things that I cooked during the week. You're going to see how much more I cooked during the week, which is not a lot. So on day 2, I typically do this on day 1, but you could do it on day 2. Threw the chicken soup together right after I made the stock. Doesn't take long. On this day, day 3 here, I fried some eggs. Maybe I fried 4 eggs for my family to add with this. And I just reheated everything else, right? Okay. And now on this day, I'm going to make a steak, but I'm still going to use everything else that I already had, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the steak, okay, or sub whatever works well for you, okay? Maybe it's eggplant. Maybe you made eggplant. Maybe you're going to make eggplant instead, okay? Cold quinoa salad, so good. So I typically will have my quinoa and I'll have it hot for 1 or 2 meals, then to change it up, okay? I'll add some vinegar to it, stir it around, maybe put in some of those roasted vegetables that are left over, or like a cucumber or something, maybe some grapes, throw some grapes in there, whatever you have on hand, and make it a cold quinoa salad, okay? You can throw some raisins in there, some maybe sunflower seeds, okay, some nuts, whatever you feel like, you can just throw it in there, okay? Cold quinoa salad. So you can see how I'm not reinventing the wheel, I'm just reinventing the meal, right, so to speak, so that quinoa can be completely transformed very simply. Okay, throw in some of that wilted spinach. So there I have it. I've got steak dinner now, okay, and all I did was make some steak, okay? Now for breakfast, and these eggs, by the way, they can be boiled. They can be something that when you made this first batch, okay, maybe you made a whole bunch of them, or maybe these were not runny eggs. Maybe you just made a big pan of scrambled eggs, okay? Or maybe you just made a big tofu scramble, okay? Maybe you did something different there, okay? And then you have that on hand it's all here. So it's already done for when you had the sausage and the peppers and the eggs and then it's still already done when you're having your steak and eggs and spinach. So listen, I hope that you're getting hungry looking at this and seeing that like eating good, clean food, right? It doesn't have to be boring, okay? And it doesn't have to be like super complicated. This is literally just like mixing and matching, okay? Snack, apple and peanut butter, or I love apple and blue cheese, whatever kind of thing you like there. I don't know. I'm not going to say you can't have any chocolate ever. You know, I'm trying to keep it to one square. And so next here, I've got for my lunch, steak, the cold quinoa salad. So it's a different combo, spinach and beans, right? I could have thrown beans in and probably would have done this naturally. I mean, beans would go great with this barbecue chicken. Okay, it would go great. I mean, beans go great with everything. I don't know if you like beans, but I don't have too many. But they're so good for you as long as you can handle it digestively. Throw the beans in there. Okay. Another thing you can do with beans is you can blend them up, with an immersion blender or right in that bullet like we talked about, and then you have like a bean soup that you just made as fast as a smoothie. Okay. All right. And then you know what? Now we're at like pizza night or something like that with the family. But you know what? You're probably still going to have more food left over. Okay. So this could be either pizza night or this could be a leftover night. And you'll do well. You'll do well through the week with a plan like this. Now, this is just one version of many that I wanted to share just to give you an idea of a different approach to meal prep. And maybe this is similar to something that you do already, but maybe you don't think, a lot of people will make their dinner and they'll make enough for the next day. But then the next day, you're out of food. So then you have to make, something else. And so then you're cooking like 3 or 4 of the nights out of the 7 instead of like just minimal things like just the chicken soup or just some scrambled eggs or just, some steak there. So it's a little bit more labor intensive when you just do thinking for 2 days ahead. Whereas if you think for further ahead and you strategize beforehand, then it is a whole different ballgame. And, in terms of flavor profiles, so say, for example, I'm going to go back to this. Say, for example, you choose to do this for 4 weeks in a row, but you kind of like to change things up a little bit. Let me give you an example of how you can change this up. Okay. So maybe your chicken and cabbage, maybe you did it with like a curry style rub, okay, on week 1. So maybe on week 2, maybe you can do it with like a sweet soy sauce, right? I have done, together with like pepper jelly and soy sauce before, and that is really delicious, right? So that's one thing you could do. So you don't want to go overboard with sauces and things like that, but I don't want you to be afraid of using them, okay? But there's all kinds of different rubs. Maybe you want to do like a rosemary style and like lemon, right? Like lemon garlic, or, maybe you want to pin lemons all over it. The sky's the limit. Or maybe you just want to use lemon pepper, seasoning so that you don't have to cut the lemon, right? So that's how you can reinvent the flavor here. Okay, overnight oats. So maybe you did apples, right? First week. Maybe the second week, maybe you're going to do peanut butter and banana. Okay, maybe the third week you're going to do strawberries and cream, right? You're going to put some frozen strawberries in there. Okay, that works really well. You really don't have to do much to make them taste good or sweeten it or anything, right? So, I mean, you can't really screw that up as long as you don't throw like a whole ton of sugar in there. Okay, you don't even have to add sugar to these, and they just taste delicious. Okay, so you can change the flavor profile. Okay, so your barbecue chicken. Okay, maybe you don't do barbecue chicken here. Maybe instead what you do is you change this barbecue sauce to a little bit of salsa, and then here, instead of a sweet potato, maybe you put some of that, some of the beans and quinoa, right? And maybe some of those onions and peppers that you had, okay? And then maybe here, maybe you did like a honey mustard kind of chicken sandwich. Maybe you do something a little different. So maybe, I don't know, like pesto, right? Which is what you just open a jar. So that's when we're talking about like the condiments way in the beginning. Be versatile with your condiments. Like, and one great brand is Primal Kitchen, has a lot of great condiments. That, you know, they even have like barbecue sauces and ketchups that have no sugar or low sugar. So you can get really creative. Okay, you can get creative. So maybe this time when you have the steak, you're going to put like a chimichurri sauce on it. You know, you can buy something like that, like dressing like that already prepared. You don't necessarily have to make it fresh, although you can. And that's where I say this is something that you can totally personalize based on how much time you have. Yeah, like changing it with the flavors. So another thing that can change the flavors are the oils. So for example, say you cooked brown rice for the week. Okay. And say one day you were gonna, you know, you decided, you know what, on this day, I'm gonna have the chicken and I'm gonna have my vegetables and I'm gonna have rice. So you made rice instead of quinoa. Or you could even do this with the quinoa. Maybe you put a little bit of coconut oil and change the whole flavor profile of your rice, right? That's delicious. That's delicious. So there's so many things you can do. I would be here all night if I go over all the different ideas. And I know it comes easier for some than others. So for some of you, you might be like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I have like a million ideas in my head now. You know, but for some of you, you might be like, oh, this is like still overwhelming because I'm not creative like that in the kitchen. Okay. But if you plan ahead, you can do that. And also if you leverage some of these ideas, it's going to be easier for you to strategize. Okay. And then also taking in feedback from your family as well is going to be a great way to go. Okay. You know, things that are really versatile are like yogurt dressings, you know, that you can, you know, just in a pinch kind of use as either a marinade or a salad dressing or a dip, you know. So those types of things you want to start to get familiar with in your shopping experience. Okay, so how to store. Now, there's different ways that you can go about this. So you can store it in the container it was cooked in. So this is why I personally love casserole dishes, and I love pots, and I love even Pyrex, right? You can store, so you can either store it in what it was cooked in, if you have the space, okay, or you can use large glass Pyrex, okay, where you just put everything not together, but like put all the rice together, put all the vegetables together, you know, keep it separated. I usually, if you're cooking meat, I usually try and keep the meat separate from the vegetables. That's how I like to do it. However, you can use mason jars. However, if you, and this is a personal preference, I personally don't do this, but I have in the past. But I, for the most part, don't. But you can, because it takes away one more step during the week for you. But you will put the time in on the front end, is putting the meals in the partitioned containers, like the meal prep containers. You know, you can do that. Okay, you can absolutely do that. You can get very fancy with that. But again, I'm trying to keep it just quick and efficient. For me, I find it faster just to, you know, the night before, or even if I'm home as I'm going to eat it, I just kind of either put in a dish, warm it up, or I'll do it, the morning of if I'm going to go somewhere, or the night before, because for me, it just makes less mess. It makes less mess, and it's less overwhelming for me personally than like setting out like 14 meal containers. And of course, if I do it for myself, I gotta do it for my husband, right? So now I have like 28 meal containers, and that's when people look and they're like, oh my gosh, I am not meal prepping, sorry. I quit, right? So you don't have to do that. You can, but you don't have to. Okay, there's more than one way. In the beginning, when we talked about keeping an open mind, there's so more than one way to meal prep. All right, so now just a few hacks that I mentioned some of them earlier in the earlier parts, but rice. Now, I get a lot of feedback from women that I have coached over the years about their family members say they want to have, like, white rice is not the devil. You can eat white rice, okay? Brown rice for some people is better if your digestive system can handle it, because it digests slower, right? For some people, brown rice causes more of a problem. Okay, it depends. But either way, whether you have a family member in your household that won't eat quinoa or won't eat brown rice or won't eat what you want to eat, here's an idea. You can cook a batch, okay, at any given point, and you can measure it and put it in like a little Ziploc bag, those little snack bags. And I've even done it in just the fold over ones. So it's pre-portioned, and then you put it in another container, like a Tupperware container. So you have the Ziploc bag inside another container. And so you have, like, I don't know, 20 servings of rice that are already cooked, and they're in the freezer, and then you just take it out and you throw it with your meal, and it's so easy. That is very convenient. They do also sell rice kind of like that, but it's usually not just one portion size. It's usually either 2 or 4 portion sizes. But you can do this. That's one thing that I have found convenient in the past for lunches, because I almost always will have some sort of complex carbohydrate with my meals. Okay, I'm not usually one to go like 0 carbs, although you don't necessarily have to have it every single meal. All right, there are things that you can consider, like excuse me, there's the pre-cooked options of things, okay, of your grains, where it's already cooked and it's a shelf-stable situation, okay? That's another time saver, okay? Pre-chopped fresh vegetables, that's another time saver. Pre-chopped frozen vegetables, that's another time saver, right? So even though I had that, 20 minutes set aside for the chopping of vegetables, you don't necessarily have to use fresh produce. You can use frozen. And there are some arguments that that's almost even better than having, food that was maybe in your fridge for like 4 days and is slowly dying, where this is frozen like right away and the nutrients are there. Okay, you can do it. You can do it. Those are options. So you can make this as customized to you as you want. So you can make this even faster than I explained, or you can make it longer, depending how much of the convenience you want to invest in, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about some other things, a little bit of digital help here. Okay. So this is not the only way. Okay. There are other ways, right? So for example, if you don't want to do the planning portion, there's a service called eMeals, where you choose like your meal style. So say you're gluten-free, say you're vegetarian, say you're keto, right? You choose whatever your meal preference is, excuse me, whatever your meal preference is, and it actually populates a grocery list for you, and it's supposed to also connect to things like Instacart, where the groceries will go right into your shopping cart, and then you can order right there. So if you haven't heard of things like that, there are services like that. eMeals is one of them. Okay. For planning, you can use things like macro stacks, which will populate your meals according to your macro ratio. So your protein percentage, your carbohydrate percentage, your fat percentage. And it will say, okay, well, this is what, you can set up your whole week, meals for the week. You can get meal ideas from that. Okay, that's another aid. Eat This Much is actually one that's new to me that a client actually suggested as she's using. Eat This Much will also give you meal ideas. One thing I use also is something called To Do, TEUXDEUX, and it's actually a to-do list app, but I actually will have a list of breakfasts that I like, a list of meals that I typically like for lunch, a list for dinners, and some snacks. And so what I can do then is I don't have to keep thinking of like a new thing. I can, when I'm planning, I can just look at this list and I can either write on a piece of paper because all my meals are right there, or I can kind of drag and drop them into another list, which is like I can have a list that says like my meals for this week, and then I have breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and then I just choose from there and I can drag and drop it. Okay, so that's another helpful tool. MyFitnessPal, I really like their recipe function in there, because you can create your own recipes and you can put them in there, and then you can always go back to them. And keep a little file there. And if you are being conscious of your intake, your caloric intake, if you have some sort of a hard goal, and that's something that you're doing as an exercise of awareness or something like that, that's another option. Okay, of course, if you work with me on my Boss program, I have meals and recipes also available to you there that you can choose from that are really delicious. Okay. All right, so shopping services, we talked about some alternatives, right? You could go to the farmer's market, you can go to the grocery store, you can order on things like Instacart, Peapod, Amazon Fresh, Isagenix Auto Ship is what I use for some of those simple options. Okay, and those get delivered right to me every month, because I don't want to go without those, because they are really convenient. And making sure that you're prepared is really part of your success. Is really a big part of making sure that you make the better choices, right? You make the right choices. Okay, convenience items and supplements. Okay, some things that are good to kind of weave in there are a green supplement. Okay, so say greens don't really agree with you, or you don't agree with them. You can have a greens supplement to help reinforce getting those phytonutrients, okay, with some sort of a green supplement. Those are available. Okay, multivitamin, I recommend having a multivitamin if you can tolerate it. And again, a convenience one that I use all the time that makes me feel wonderful and also helps a lot with my ice cream cravings is a meal replacement or a protein shake. Now, the difference between a protein shake excuse me, and a meal replacement shake is that a protein shake is literally just usually either whey protein or like a pea protein isolate, or rice protein, something like that, where it's more like a post-workout kind of drink or like a snack sort of thing, or something, a great way to like fill you up and add to a smoothie. Okay, but it really doesn't have any of the other carbohydrates or anything like that. Okay, so this is more geared towards recovery. Okay, and then the meal replacement has a little bit more added reinforcement in terms of your vitamins and minerals. Okay, so for that I really like the Isagenix shakes. There's some other companies that do really well as well. Vital Proteins I like for just straight protein as well, as Isagenix, but I don't know about their meal replacements. Okay, meal replacement bars. So a couple things you want to just look out for if you are going to decide to use these meal replacements or anything of the sort. You want to really check out the sugar content, because there's a lot of really good marketing out there that will sell you something that's actually just a glorified like Snickers bar. Okay. So you want to check out the sugar, what kind of sweetener they're using. And, because a lot of them will have, sucralose. And I've even seen with the shakes even too, still using aspartame and things like that. It's really common. So if you're going to use something like that, you want to make sure that you're using something that does not have crazy ingredients and unidentified things you can't read on the label. Okay, so if you've learned from me before, you know that already, but it's always worth a reminder. So this is something I will share with you. Okay, so this gets a little bit more into the snack attack. Okay, I got 3 categories here. I'm just going to zip through them really, really, really fast. Okay, prep and go, store and go, and grab and go. Okay, so here you got things like seeds, chia pudding, sweet potatoes, overnight oats, shakes, boiled eggs, protein balls, hummus, that kind of thing. Okay, these are great for snacks. Store and know. That's something you can, if you go to work, if you're in an office every day, it's there. Okay, it's something that you can store and keep there. Some things that are, pretty much, are going to last. Okay, so you can have your shakes stored there, nuts, seeds, clementines, bars, protein shakes, protein chips, single serve quinoa, tuna pouches, things like that. And then this grab and go, this is like basically stuff that's already pre-prepared for you, right? So fruits, okay, your basic fruits, low sugar Greek yogurt, okay, again, tuna pouch, string cheese, nut butters, apple sauces, roasted chickpeas, kombucha, okay. I'll have this available for you so that you can check it out on your own time. But those are some great snack ideas that are, you don't really have to do a lot of preparation there. So that is really all I have for you today about meal prepping. Again, if you wanted to do this together, there's no reason why we can't set up a time to do this actually together. I think that would be a blast. But if you are in a position where you feel like, yeah, I get this, this makes sense, I think I can do this, but you know what? I think to get to my goals, I need a little bit more than just like the meal prep. Okay, maybe you need a little bit of accountability. Maybe you need a little bit of one-on-one coaching. Maybe you have some more specific questions. Maybe you've got to get your body moving, right? Maybe you have to do a little bit more of the mindset work. Okay, so if that's you and you feel like, you know what, this was really great, Christine, this was a ton of information. This is really, really helpful. But I think I need just like a little bit more. I do have a program coming up. If you're not already working with me and you feel like you could use something like that, let's talk about your Naked Truth 21-day challenge, okay? It includes the accountability, the nutrition coaching, workouts, all of your mindset work, group coaching, digital metrics, which is really cool because I get to see your heart rate in real time. And even when we're not working out together, I get to see your heart rate. So I get to check out your heart really well. Okay, and of course, you will be the first to join the new virtual classes that I have coming up this month as well. So with this offer, you also get a free belt, those free classes, be the first in those free classes, and a free strategy call with me. So if that is something you're interested in, you please let me know. Okay, just shoot me an email. Just you can simply respond to the emails that you got in your message box for this specific meal prep workshop, and you can connect with me that way, or you can simply go to christinedesouza.com and request a meeting with me. So this, I hope, is going to serve you so well and help you so well. And again, if you need even more, just individual strategizing, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation with you, and even better to work together. So thank you so much.